Thank you. Shortly after Richard Nixon resigned the presidency, Bob and I were asked a long question about reporting. We answered with a short phrase that we've used many times since to describe our reporting on Watergate and its purpose and methodology. We called it the best obtainable version of the truth. The best obtainable version of the truth. It's a simple concept, yet something very difficult to get right because of the enormous amount of effort, thinking, persistence, pushback, removal of ideological baggage, and for sure luck that is required, not to mention some unnatural humility. Underlying everything reporters do in pursuit of the best obtainable version of the truth, whatever our beat or assignment, is the question, what is news? What is it that we believe is important, relevant, hidden perhaps, or even in plain sight and ignored by conventional journalistic wisdom or governmental wisdom? I'd say this question of what is news becomes even more relevant and essential if we are covering the President of the United States. Richard Nixon tried to make the conduct of the press the issue in Watergate instead of the conduct of the President and his men. We tried to avoid the noise and let the reporting speak. During our coverage of Watergate and since, Bob and I have learned a lot from one another about the business of being reporters. Let me list here a few of the primary elements of Bernstein's reportorial education from Woodward. 1, almost inevitably, unreasonable government secrecy is the enemy, and usually the giveaway about what the real story might be. And when lying is combined with secrecy, there is usually a pretty good roadmap in front of us. Yes, follow the money, but follow also the lies. Two, sources are human beings whom we need to listen to and empathize with and understand, and not objectify simply as the means to get a story. We need to go back to our sources time and again, over and over. The best obtainable version of the truth is about context and nuance, even more than it's about simple existential facts. The development and help of Deep Throat, Mark Felt as a source, was a deeply human enterprise. When we were working on our second book, The Final Days, Woodward did 17 interviews with Richard Nixon's White House lawyer. Sustained inquiry is essential. You never know what the real story is until you've done the reporting, as Woodward says, exhaustively, gone back over and over to our sources, asked ourselves in them what's missing, what's the further explanation, what are the details, what do they think it means? Our assumption of the big picture isn't enough. Our preconceived notions of where the story might go are almost always different than where the story comes out when we've done the reporting. I know of no important story that I've worked on in more than half a century of reporting that ended up where I thought it would go when I started on it. The people with the information we want should not be pigeonholed or prejudged by their ideology or their politics. Almost all of our sources in Watergate were people who had, at one time or another, been committed to Richard Nixon and his presidency. Incremental reporting is essential. We wrote more than 200 stories in Watergate. Whenever I'd say, let's go for the big picture, the whole enchilada or whatever, Bob would say, here's what we know now and are ready to put in the paper. And then inevitably, one story led to another, and the larger tale expanded because of this repertorial dynamic. The best obtainable version of the truth became repeatedly clearer, more developed, and understandable. We're reporters, not judges, not legislators. What the government or citizens or judges do with the information we've developed is not our part of the process, nor our objective. Our job is to put the best obtainable version of the truth out there, period, especially now.